talking of one military, one president, one currency, one one system, judicial system, military system, to build one where the center of command will be under one leadership. So in this Africa we're talking about, I don't know how we got to this point where now Kenya has become the prototype for all these implementations. And I'm glad when my brother Willis Otieno was speaking, I'm glad he understands that Kenyans, we are being turned into slavery in day broad light. All these shenanigans and things you are seeing, all these policies and implementations that are being brought forward ever since the KK government got into office are all spearheaded and pushed to us by these globalist organizations. Number one, their biggest agenda is to depopulate the whole world. They are very clear in their agenda, and they say for the implementation of the New World Order, the first thing they have to do is to reduce the number of people on Earth from a number of about 8 billion to a maximum of 500 million to 1 billion people. And how do you do that? So their first implementations was things to do with food and agriculture. And that is why you'll notice most of the implementations and policies that are being implemented in this country from Uhuru Kenyatta's time were policies to do with health, food and agriculture, and land. Simply because they understood the only way to control mankind is to control the food. As it is said, he who feeds you controls you. So how are they able to manage, how are they able to control our food supply and our food agricultural practices? It is through policies in these governments that are puppets to these globalist organizations. Today in this country, we know very well that the entire assembly has been held captive by the executive. But at the same time, we have to understand that our entire leadership has also been held captive by these globalists. All these agricultural policies that are being implemented in Kenya are meant to take full control of our food production, food supply, and our entire agricultural practices. In the New World Order agenda, they state clearly that their main objective is to transfer food production and agricultural practices together with assets and land from individuals to the big corporations. In the sense that, as my brother Willis had said, we are being taken back to slavery. The New World Order agenda entails to take control of the entire ownership of properties, assets, and everything else on planet Earth. But the saddest thing is that we are being pushed towards an agenda that many Kenyans are not aware of, many Kenyans are not speaking about. Even our entire leadership, most of them don't know where these globalists are taking us
Correct.
to. So once they control the
Yes.
food, today you know very well that agriculture is under their control, and they managed to do it through policies. And this policy started during Uhuru Kenyatta's time, when Kunjuri brought forward a document called agricultural certification policy or something he brought about when he was the Minister of Agriculture, where they brought policies to do with seeds, where you cannot share seeds, and they allowed these multinational globalist organizations such as DuPont, Cargill, Monsanto, they allowed them to come and patent seeds here. Today in this country, it is a crime to even share seeds with your neighbor. Today in this country, it's a crime to use seeds that are not patented. And remember, most of these GMO seeds that were being implemented to plant and to consume are what we call terminator seeds. In the essence that once you use that seed, you cannot replant it in the next season. So what does that mean? It means if you need to plant in your next season, you must go back to them and they'll sell it to you at your price, and they can decide whether to sell it to you or not to
Thank you.
sell it to you. So this is
Thank you. Let,
slavery.
let me interrupt you a bit. So
Yes. Yes.
wadau kitu Mwesha anasema sisi tumekuwa slaves kwa slave market. Government imekuwa kama slave broker. Au ndio wanapeleka kwa slave market, alafu sisi tunaenda tunauzwa huko. Na kuna three things zenye our brokers wanatufanyia. Kitu ya kwanza, wameuza health yetu. Ukitaka kujua wameuza health yetu, uangalie vizuri ni nani amechaguliwa kuwa minister wa health. Ni mtu ametoka WHO. Na nilikuwa naambia mtu jana, kama president angetaka kuemploy ama kupatia cabinet secretary wa health, mbona asingeita KMPDU awambie, cheki, nataka ni work na mtu mwenye mnataka. Hebu angalieni kwa hiyo union yenyu ni nani manager mpoa mwenye anaweza fanya hiyo kazi. Mnaona? Ama aite governors. Governors wanakuanga na kitu inaitwa governors council. Kwa hiyo governors council kuna health committee. Akae nao waseme huko kwa makaunti zenu, hebu angalieni ule daktari mwenye ni manager mwenye anafanya kazi poa, mlete ni work na yeye, because huyo ndiye anaelewa shida zetu kwa county level. So huyo anaweza create synergy between the national government and the county government. Juga mnanipata hapo. So hao wameletewa mtu kutoka WHO akwe hapo kama minister. Unajua inamaanisha nini? Inamaanisha vaccines zitaanza kuja Kenya. Hiyo inamaanisha wewe kama ni mzazi utakuwa unaambiwa mtoi wako kesho atadungwa vaccine ya minyoo. Kesho ingine anaambiwa parent, kuna vaccine ya homa ya nguruwe, watoto wako watadungwa. Kesho watapewa madawa za minyoo. Umeelewa? Na watu hawaoni hiyo. Juzi nimeona madaktari wakicelebrate, wakisema ametoka WHO. Hamuelewi the global agenda yenye Steve anaongelea. Sijui kama mnampata. He is talking about it. Alafu kuna history ya agriculture. Saa hizi mimi nakumbuka nikigrow up, my grandmother, tulikuwa tunapanda mahindi, alafu tukivuna hiyo mahindi anachukua hiyo mahindi, hiyo cob anaipeleka huko juu kwa jikoni yake. So wakati anapika hiyo moshi inaiwarm for a whole year. Hiyo mwaka inafuata anachukua hizo seeds anazisoak, alafu asubuhi tunaenda tunapanda. Saa hizi hauwezi. Ukinunua seed leo huwezi panda next year because hizo seeds zimekuwa patented. So tumenyang'anywa kitu inaitwa seed sovereignty. Huwezi panda chakula, ni mtu anakupandia hiyo chakula. Alafu slavery ya tatu ni yenye imetupeleka kwa street, economic slavery. Sasa sisi tumekuwa kama mbuzi kwa mnada. Ndio maana watu wako kwa street. Tuko kwa street kwa sababu tumekuwa slaves. Ndio tunaongelea sana juu ya economic slavery, lakini mkumbuke kuna health slavery, kuna agriculture slavery. Na kwa hiyo health, ukitaka kujua mambo ya depopulation for example, kwa nini wana push hormonal contraceptives kila siku? Yet mwanamke anakuanga fertile only 6 days in a month. 6 days peke yake ama 72 days in a year. Kwa nini adungwe kitu yenye nakaa kwa mwili yake for 5 years? Na watu hawaoni the agenda. Hii global agenda kina Bill Gates na nani, their aim is to kufanya sisi tukue slaves in our own country, in our own nation. Next time mtaambiwa sasa, wewe farmer, juu haupandi mahindi, kuna ile apartment tumejenga pale, free housing, affordable house, wacha tukupeleke huko. Hii shamba cha tukupeleke kama 100,000. Wewe tukupe 100,000, wewe tuachie shamba, tutakuwa tunapanda potatoes za kupeleka KFC ng'ambo. Hiyo ndio kitu wanatupangia, lakini watu hawaoni. Hiyo ndio kitu tunaongelea. Inafaa muamke. Kama COVID-19 haikukufunza kitu, hakuna kitu taikufunza tena. Nyinyi mliona COVID-19 vile mko tunafungwa kama kondoo, tunafungiwa kwa manyumba. Yet tulisema in Africa hakuna vile COVID-19 itatu affect. Hakuna. Mkafungwa kwa manyumba, mkaambiwa mvae mask, mlikuwa mnakaa kama kondoo, mnadungwa mashindano huku na huku, hata mji shindano imetoka wapi, nani ameleta, nani amemanufacture, mnaambiwa tu endeni mdungwe. Na wewe pia unapanga line hapo kama kondoo, mnanizushia hapa up, nawaambia wachane na hizo vitu, mnanizushia hapa up. Now see where we are today. Watu wana collapse tu wakianguka chini. Hamuoni kitu kama hiyo? Edgar, uliza maswali zako kwa PS.
Thank you so much, Amerix. So, with all the due respect, Dr. Beatrice, while you are speaking, kulikuwa na watoi walikuja DM yangu. These are kids with no IDs. These are kids wenye wako shule, wameapply for this very important document na hawajapewa. So wanauliza hivi, why are you lying? Because how can you say that one can apply for help with a birth certificate? Mtu anaweza fungua bank account na birth certificate. Is it logical? Juu help lazima iende kwa bank. So na kufungua bank account unahitaji KRA pin. So sahi KRA pin unaweza ifungua na birth certificate ama ni huku Shinyalu ndio tunadiscriminatiwa? You will answer those questions. Ndegwa Njiru, advocate, you can go.
Yes. Thank you very much. I have listened to the submissions of various individuals and the summary you've given from Steve and the process of the enslavement of the African child. It has left me so much baffled because whatever you are speaking is a reality on the ground. And the most important thing is that the enslavement is both social, political, and economical. If you look at the social enslavement, you realize that they have now started pushing an agenda that is geared towards depopulating the human race, the LGBTQ. I'll not submit much on it. I'll only post it as a challenge for you to ponder and just to prove to you how the enslavement is taking place. When Uhuru Kenyatta decided to do Galana Kulalu, a food basket that would have sorted out greater 20% or 30% of our food insecurity. What happened to the project? The project was frustrated by those people who want to control the food sovereignty. So in real sense, it is calling for our self-introspection. But how does it begin and how did we get ourselves here? We got ourselves here when we elected a government that does not respond to the plight of the people. We got ourselves here when we got a government, or when we elected a government that looks at self-enrichment as opposed to propagating policies that are enfiat mwananchi, policies that will be able to propagate the human race, policies that are able to respond to our social challenges, political challenges, and economic challenges. We have enslaved ourselves. It is we who elected this government. It is we who shall elect the future government. But we never hold these individuals to account. You have just submitted, Eric, very ably, that if Mr. William Ruto was interested in having a worker as a minister for health, he had very good channels where he would have gotten clear advice. Because he's there
I think Advocate Njiru is having connection issues. Amerix, can you be able to get him?
I'm unable to get him. I can see him on the speaker's panel. Jiru? Jiru? All right, Steve Mbogo, you can finish your prosecution of the problem and then give us a solution. We do not want
Yes.
to spend
Yes.
so much time on the problems. Let us get the problem, then
Yes.
give us the correct remedy for this, because we need to take action.
Exactly. So I was just explaining to you the issue of control of agriculture, and I'm glad also you seem to you do understand their next
sorry,
procedure or their next step of. Sorry. Okay.
I had lost the mic. Some guys were calling. Sorry about that. I was
All right.
submitting that I was not baffled when I heard the PS not able
We lost you again.
to. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Let
you.
me
Maybe
just
you
sort
can
out
sit.
this person who is. I'm saying I'm not baffled when I hear the peers unable to explain why people are not able to get IDs. The lack of IDs is a political agenda for Mr. William Ruto. He has understood that we are 28 million strong, and that gives him sleepless nights. He's wondering, if I give these guys IDs, what will be my political future? If they're able to go to the streets under Article 35, 37 of the Constitution, what will happen to the regime?
I think you have connection issues, Ndegwanjiru. Maybe you are on the road or something. Can you hear him? Edgar?
I think he's lost.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can hear you.
Yeah. Maybe Steve can, you can mute Ndegwa. He's on the road, I suspect. That's why his network is on and off.
Yes.
Or no. There's some guys who is keeping on
Okay.
calling. Can you hear
Yes,
me
yes, yes.
now?
You can prosecute your issues as quickly as
Hello?
possible. Yes, we can hear you. Anyway, as we wait for him, news just in is that Joe Biden has dropped out of the race. So one down. He has dropped out. These are the people who are really messing our world as we speak. They infiltrate our world with neoliberal agenda, Zionism, and all those things that make us not human beings. We become robots. We eat bad foods. We get bad medicine. We live like robots or something. Steve Mbogo, can you finish your prosecution, please?
Yes. So I was talking about the agricultural and agricultural practices control. So actually, Eric, their main objective is to take full control and transfer agricultural land and practices from individuals to these globalist organizations. And that is why I'm glad you understand the issue of this new affordable housing agenda. It's an agenda that no Kenyan can really explain because this agenda is not a Kenyan agenda. I'll tell you with confidence that even the plans and the drawings for these projects of the new housing agenda were done by the IMF and these globalist organizations. And their main objective is, most of it is coming under the social panel, where they're saying it's going to be for social activities, to give the houses to the people. But their main objective is to compensate those people who are going to lose their land in the rural and urban areas. Many at times, and Kenyans, this is a time where we have to be listening to what our leaders say. Because if you want to know where leaders are taking you, stay keen and understand the words they are pronouncing time and again. Many a times the president has pronounced that it is time as Kenyans. We have to free up land from rural areas and move to urban areas. And that is why these housing projects are done only within the towns. If really they were supposed to empower or bring up the poor people and embrace the mamamboga and boda boda, as it is said, these are projects that will even be done in rural areas where people have cheap or poor settlements. But the main objective is to take over the land and put people under a project in the New World Order known as the 15-minute cities. The 15-minute cities appear very pretty in the pronouncement, and they say it is a group of leaders all over the countries that are coming together to combat what we call climate change. But the reality is, this is the projection of the future of the world, where they want to put people in a sort of a concentration camp, and people will only be living within these small cities. That's why they name them the 15-minute cities. And the entire land and property will be transferred to these globalist organizations. Eric, if you do your research today in America, actually 44% of single family homes have already been taken over by these globalist organizations. Big companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, StreetGuard, all owned by these cabals I'm talking about. Now, the moment you take these people into these concentration camps, you need to find a way to control them. And that is where they're coming up with the agenda of what you call the digital ID. Let me tell you, Eric, printing an ID ever since you were born in this country, issuance and printing of IDs is one of the easiest job a government can do. But you'll agree with me, for the last 2-3 years, this activity has hit a snag, and it has been intentional, simply because they are gearing towards the launching of what we call the digital world ID. The president himself pronounced and said that very soon we will launch digital IDs, and these digital IDs will be free. And he went mute on that agenda. Because what they do, what the globalists do, is they prepare you in their pronouncements. Now, these digital IDs, their main objective is for total control of mankind. And the worst of it all, the digital IDs come handy because of the introduction of the new world currency, which are called the central bank digital currencies. Again, I repeat, the currency is switched off. That means you can't transact, you can't buy anything, you can't move from anywhere. Number two, the same digital IDs are what will be used in the election practices. So that means, my friend, you'll be waking up in the morning during election day and you realize and you find that you already voted for the government or whoever will be in charge of those systems. So all these implementations that are happening in Kenya are geared towards this agenda. And we have to understand, as Kenyans, if you're not able to address these implementations that are happening in this country, then we are fighting a losing battle. It is until we start addressing and fighting this globalist agenda, that's when we'll find a solution to these problems. I'm glad the way my brother, Senior Counsel Willis, started and said, if you look at all the names that were proposed by the president yesterday for the cabinet secretary's position, a majority of them serve an interest. I want to make you understand that in the economical, health, and agricultural fields in this country, the globalists managed to infiltrate and put their people in there. When you look at the economical pillar of this country, majority and the bosses who are in charge, for example, Kamau Thuge. Kamau Thuge is a gentleman who worked in the IMF for more than 20 years. In fact, he was a director or in charge of debt in developing countries. Someone like Ndungu, Ndungu was also in the board of the IMF and also worked and served in the board of the World Economic Forum. When you look at the former CS, Nakumicha, this year in March, actually, she was appointed to be a member of the board in the World Economic Forum. The new lady Baraza, who was nominated yesterday by the president, has also been a member and has worked with the WHO. So these are people who are being put strategically to implement policies for the globalist agenda, not for the Kenyan agenda. So it is until we address these issues on a nutshell and speak as it is, then, my brothers and sisters, we are fighting a losing battle. That has really become a puppet of these globalists, and their main intention Many counties, I happened to come about 24,000 girls were vaccinated with the HPV vaccine. And these kids became so ill to an extent that the government chased the Bill Gates Foundation from India. Rejected finance bill. They had proposed to remove taxes and levies on NGOs simply because the biggest NGOs of the cabals have put foot in our country. So, Eric, as I conclude, I want people to understand that this issue, which is the bone of contention, you're talking about the ID issue, it is not a matter of government systems failing to print IDs. No. These are conditions that have been given to them, and they're delaying the process as they wait to launch what you call the digital ID, which will be conjoined with what you call the central bank digital currencies.
Oh, all right. Yeah, this
Yes,
is
yes.
serious. I also saw you saying something about our minerals, and there's been a very number of spaces here talking about minerals, and I am shocked to learn that Kenya has minerals. Kenya has gold.
Yes, my
I am
brother.
shocked that this thing they
Yes.
call diatomite somewhere here in Kriandusi, that there are other minerals there that are very valuable. And I was just Googling,
Exactly.
and there is that trona in Magadi, which is in
Yes.
billions. And I'm also told we have a lot of
Yes.
minerals in Taita, a lot of minerals in Laikipia, a lot of minerals in Naivasha. Why are we not being told about minerals?
Very good, Eric. First, you have to understand that Kenya as a country, as per our geological surveys, we have about 970 minerals in existence in Kenya. And that begs the question, what is the biggest interest in? Today, you and I will agree that the largest owners of land in this country are not Kenyans. After the government, the largest owners of land in this country are the British. And the majority of those big land, chunks of land owned by the British have already been taken over by the same globalists I'm talking about. Now, when you talk about minerals, my brother, I want you to understand that minerals are products or elements that grow or evolve. And minerals are created due to different changes on planet Earth. One of the ways minerals form, it's formed, now, one of the ways is through changes of heat and pressure in the ground. The second one is when salt evaporates or when chemicals come out of hot fluids. So, for instance, I'm talking about these hot water lakes, for example. And the other ones are formed when hot gases or molten rocks cool. So, when you have that in your back at the back of your head, you have to understand where to find these activities. So, when you talk of heated areas or areas with heated activities on the ground, I'm talking of activities volcanic mountains. How many volcanic mountains do we have in Kenya? We have Mount Kilimanjaro, we have Mount Kenya, we have Mount Longonot, we have Elgon. These mountains, as much as they are not land owned by these people are either in Taita Taveta, either in Laikipia, Nanyuki, Mount Kenya area, or in Naivasha area. And a huge majority are now moving towards Baragoi, Baringo, Bogoria, Kuresoi, Suguta Valley area. And that is because of these natural activities happening in the ground. Now, I want you to understand that the first geological surveys in Kenya were done in the early 1930s and 1940s. And I'll tell you that even by the time uh, 90 years without selling even a piece of it. But what did they do? Most of them demarcated, or they turned those land into what we call national parks or conservancies. And I'll want all of you to go and check. It is very funny that even the Nairobi National Park, their title deed is under a company called Royal National Parks. It's not even under the government. So there are people who own these conservancies. My issue is they have the titles to the land and they own the land because they were if they own the land and the land is mineral rich, because we know they are mineral rich, it is time they start the mining activities. If they are not in a position to do that, the government can come in and start these activities so that the government can earn royalties. We cannot have minerals worth billions and billions of dollars all the way from Magadi company to Mombasa. They're not coming out clean. Why isn't the government looking into this issue
I am
critically?
shocked.
During Uhuru Kenyatta's time, we were told that the military conducted what we call a geological survey. Cobalt, thorium, nickel, chromite, lead, zinc, all these minerals we have in this country. But why are we languishing in abject poverty? It is because we have a government that does not understand how to take this country forward. Trap. How do we come out of it? The reality is human displacement that is happening there. There's so much deposits of hydrocarbon and minerals even to do with around the area, and that is where we will solve our problems. Remember, economic liberation should be
is a seed advocate. And he was saying that Kenya is number 4 on the cancer index list. Number 1 is South Africa, number 2 Zimbabwe, number 3 Malawi, number 4 Kenya. And the major driver for that, GMO seeds. So much GMO seeds. We have lost our seed sovereignty as a nation. And if you want to know that this is a catastrophic event waiting, Zimbabwe was once a breadbasket of Southern Africa. But today, as we speak right now, Zimbabwe has no food. There's a drought crisis going on in Zimbabwe right now. And surprisingly, a very tiny country has donated maize to Zimbabwe. That country is called Rwanda. Is that where we want to take our country? Where we cannot farm our food because we have sold our seed sovereignty to globalists? Are we not angry enough? Don't we see our future, the pain that awaits us in the future? Are we selling our resources just like that as we sit? Are we selling ourselves to slavery as we watch? Honestly? And there is someone who says he's a university student and says the government is doing something for them? Honestly? And you come and abuse me? Or abuse someone who wants the government to behave better? Really? Are you normal? There's a group that has been formed here on X where people are discussing this space and abusing me and saying Amerix na yo takataka yake hiyo ya space hiyo. Just imagine. Are we serious as Kasmuel? Are we serious?
You tell me, sir. I do not think we
Are
are.
we serious?
I do not think we are at all. I'm a 26-year-old gentleman and might not know so much about my country in terms of history. I might not know who did what or what goes on where, but one thing I'm to not only disease and hunger the government and occupy that seat. The government has consistently killed us for being peaceful and asking them to be accountable. There are very, very many atrocities that have happened to the country. Some things which are absolutely unbelievable. Like the fact that when I heard Amerix talk about us being high in the cancer index, I'm thinking just beyond lifestyle. We still have toxic nuclear waste that was dumped in northeastern. And I was wondering, how comes those people who lead a relatively healthy life, where do they have such high cancer prevalence? We have toxic waste, we have minerals, all these other sides. And there's a young person probably who's on this space and they're wondering, I do not have this much information, but I know I have rage and I know I cannot stand for this government in its corrupt nature. I'm here to tell you that it is valid, whatever it is that you're feeling. You do not need to be the most educated for you to understand that we are being churned out of a system that will never assimilate you for work. That if you do not have any connections, and we call them networking, but it is corrupt decisions made by a few individuals, that the wealth disparity in this country is so great, and the people who are part of the elite want to make it look as if you're not hardworking enough. If, as a young person, you're here and you're listening to the sound of my voice, as we consistently continue to educate ourselves, when that constitution says all sovereign powers belong to the people of Kenya, it is talking about you. Let nobody intimidate you for your lack of knowledge, for you trying to pursue good governance. Because a lot of the people who plunged us into this mess, there are wheeler dealers amongst us who plunged us into this mess, who marketed this president and this current administration, and who currently are trying to piss on our intelligence. I will take a rather different angle because there could be more informed people who will tell you about the fishing basket in the Indian Ocean and how it is a 10 trillion economy that we as Kenyans are not allowed to touch, despite us knowing that annually stashed their wealth outside. They're given what next? It cannot be that we have marched in vain, that the blood of 50 the guns were drawn. Today, the president made himself clear that he will no longer listen to us constitutionally. And part of the things that I listened to his subtlety when he was saying that enough is enough, and you've seen the police do it, you've seen them accuse us of violence. They've said that they've received intelligence that goons are planning to infiltrate the movement. What goons and why do they not act on that intelligence as soon as they find it? If, as a young person, you are confused about this, I am here to assuage you and let you know that your rage is in the right place. Rage on, march on, forge on, because we are being sold. I've been listening to the submissions of the previous speakers, and it breaks my heart to know that we live in such a country. To remind you, young people, that what we have achieved in 2 months is the kind of change the country has been seeking to achieve. Do not let the hijack of the political class of the there is something sinister. I will not claim monopoly. Rage are in the right place. Please do not allow anybody to sow the seeds of disunity and fear and despair in your hearts. The rage moves on. Exercise your constitutional and democratic right to civil disobedience. We are protesters, not rioters and looters, as some of people are trying to paint us. As a young person, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, rage on, because the people who died, Denzel did not die in vain, Rex did not die in vain, and as if it is not enough, the 12-year-old Shuja Kennedy did not die in vain. Let their blood not have flowed in vain. There are people who left their homes in the morning and never made it back. There are people whose bodies were riddled with bullets, people who will never walk again. They sacrificed their limbs and their emotions and their organs that we may have a better country. For their sake, let their blood not have flown in vain. We cannot take this from a regime that does not want to listen, a regime that claims dialogue, but dialogue is a preserve of the political class. When they want to dialogue with the clergy, they do it in open camera. When they want to dialogue with each other as political class, they do it on our taxpayers' money, sometimes in resorts. But when they want to dialogue with the youth, it is on the point of a gun, at the other end of a baton, looking stupid, or we are found in swamps, floating, tortured, dead. If you dare raise your voice, you are abducted and killed. As a young person, I'm urging you to rage on. The older generation that is here with us have supported us consistently. They are giving us information and equipping us. But let us not be detracted from the rage that is going on, because the rage is not a call to disorder. It is not a call to ban our country. It is a call to proper governance. Rage on, march on. And when you say Ruto must go, you know clearly the issues that we are fighting is a lack of meritocracy. We have seen them pride themselves in tokenistic things where they want to appoint first. Rage on, because they are pissing on your intelligence, that once they give us a youth, we find that we can trace them as a proxy to a person who's bearing a case. We said dissolve, not reshuffle. He did exactly that and still gave us people who constitutionally should not even be nominated. He might be playing a long game to try and show us that he has assuaged us, because we know the executive has captured the legislature, and he might take the names so that they are rejected at the legislative level for him to pass off as a person of good governance. We declare that we have seen through that ruse. As a young person, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, rage on. Do not accept your future to be sold out by political prostitutes, people who deal with the lives of millions. And I have said time without number, corruption is akin to genocide. When you take money that belongs to young mothers, you are
Kaskazini,
killing millions of generations.
Kaskazini,
Rage
you
on.
can wind up. You can wind up.
As I wind up, as we plan to occupy, as we plan to continue to exercise our democratic rights, as we plan to implement our constitutional rights, do not be coward. I am calling you to unity. There will be a lot of distractions, there will be a lot of detractions and small talk, but the political class unites. Remember that they will use everything they have, which is weapons, money, and the minds that they have at their disposal. Do not let anyone whore with your future. Rage on.
Okay. Thank you so much for the solid submission. So I'm going to let Dr. Beatrice, the PS, to answer the questions that were brought upon her. And Dr. How are you telling these young people to occupy Nyayo House? Na hapo hata Nyayo House ukienda bila ID hauwezi ingia. Then another question is, why are you telling them to occupy the 10th floor? You are not telling them the exact room number that you work in. Haujui room unafanya kazi? So if you can answer those questions and the previous ones that I had brought up, before I bring in the next speaker.
Okay, Amerix, I am investing valuable time with all of you gathered in this citizen assembly, because the issues you are canvassing are very important and I take them very, very seriously. I want to underline that because I have heard some of our brethren here saying I am lying. I wouldn't come here We are also engaging the chiefs in the barazas to be able to share information and point wananchi to the right centers of in sharing information and helping students apply for this support. And I'm very happy to say that so far, 94,000